You fell from the sky. Mama says you're broken. But I think you fell here on purpose.
The sky cracked open like a wound. That was how Sarah described it later. Not an explosion, not a crash, but a wound in the gray heavens above Velarath, the dying world where her people had lived for 300 years since the Exodus. One moment the clouds were still, the next fire. Sarah stood at the edge of the ash field, her blue fingers wrapped around the handle of her gathering basket, her white hair whipping sideways in the sudden hot wind. Around her, the pink thorn blossoms trembled in their rocky beds, petals scattering like frightened insects. Her daughter, Lyss, pressed close against her leg. "Mama," Lyss whispered. "What fell?" "Something from above," Sarah said quietly. "Stay close." But Lyss never stayed close. She was 4 cycles old and had inherited exactly none of her mother's caution. Before Sarah could grab her wrist, the little girl was already running toward the smoke rising from the crater 50 meters away, her purple dress flapping, her bare blue feet finding every safe stone as if the planet itself was guiding her. Sarah ran after her. The human was half buried in scorched earth. His vessel, small, single pilot, burning from both wings, had gouged a long scar across the ash field before stopping against a boulder of black, volcanic rock. The cockpit was shattered. Steam hissed from the broken hull. And in the middle of it all, slumped against the rock with his helmet cracked and his dark armor torn across the shoulder, was a creature Sarah had never seen before. Not Valorian, not Dreth, not any species catalogued in the archive. His skin was pale, almost the color of ash, she thought, but warmer. His hair was the color of dried thornwood, brown and slightly golden at the tips. His face was flat, ears rounded, jaw strong. He breathed.
She could see that.
His chest rose and fell in an unsteady rhythm, but it rose and fell. He was alive. Lyss was already crouching beside him, her small face inches from his, studying him with the enormous dark eyes she had inherited from her grandmother. "He looks broken," Lyss said. "He is broken." "Step back," Lyss. "His face is funny." Lyss. "He doesn't have points on his ears, Mama." "Why doesn't he have points?" Sarah knelt beside the stranger and pressed 2 fingers against the side of his neck, the way the healers had taught her. His pulse was there, fast, chaotic, but present. A fighter's pulse. She had felt one before, on the battlefield at Marin Crossing, the day her mate had died. She pushed that memory down. "We cannot leave him," she said, mostly to herself. "Good," Lyss said cheerfully. "I want to keep him." His name was Calder. He said it on the 3rd day, when the fever finally broke and his eyes, brown, she noticed, like nothing she had ever seen, like the color of the old wood in the archive building, opened and found her sitting across the room, sharpening her blade by lamplight. "Where?" he started. "Velarath. Sector 9, Outer Rim. You crashed in our ash field." She did not look up from her blade. "Your vessel is destroyed. Your communications relay is destroyed. You are approximately 400 light minutes from any registered human outpost, based on the star charts in your cockpit." A silence. "You read my star charts?" "I read everything I could find. I needed to know if you were a threat." Another silence. "Then, am I?" She looked up then. He was watching her with those strange brown eyes, and there was something in them she had not expected. Not aggression, not calculation. Something quieter. Something almost like embarrassment. "No," she said. "You are not a threat. You are barely able to sit upright." He laughed, a short, rough sound, and immediately winced. "Fair." Lyss adopted him completely and without permission. On the 4th day, she climbed onto his cot and sat on his legs, which made him grunt in pain, and presented him with a thorn blossom she had picked from the ashfield. On the 5th day, she demanded he tell her stories about the human worlds. On the 6th day, she fell asleep against his arm while he was mid-sentence, and he sat very still for a long time, not moving, as if he was afraid to disturb something fragile. Sarah watched from the doorway. She had seen many things in her 30 years. She had survived a war. She had buried her mate. She had raised a daughter on a broken world at the edge of known space, with no help and no apology from anyone. She was not a woman who was moved easily. And yet, Calder stayed because his ship was destroyed. That was the reason, the practical reason. He needed parts that did not exist on Velarath. He needed a communication signal that Sarah's equipment could not generate. He needed in short time. But days became weeks. He learned the names of the thorn blossoms. He helped reinforce the eastern wall of the settlement after a dust storm weakened the stone. He sat with the elders and listened, actually listened, when they told the old stories about the Exodus, about the world they had lost, about the 300 years of survival on this hard and beautiful rock. And every evening, Lyss would press a piece of flat bark into his hands and demand he draw something from Earth.
He would draw.
Badly, he always said. She would disagree loudly. One evening, she pressed the bark into his hands, climbed into his lap, and held up a sign she had painted herself in clumsy, earnest letters. "What's Daddy?" She had seen the word in his star chart annotations. She had asked Sarah what it meant. Sarah had explained carefully what a father was. Lyss had nodded very seriously, and then made the sign. Calder looked at it for a long moment. Then he looked at Sarah across the room. She met his gaze and said nothing, but she did not look away. "I don't know," he said quietly to Lyss, "but I think I'm figuring it out." He never left. Not because the parts didn't come, eventually they did. A trader ship passed through Sector 9 14 weeks after the crash, and Calder could have gone. He had a way home. He chose a different one. He filed his relocation with the human registry on a cold morning while Lyss sat on the floor beside him, drawing thorn blossoms with his charcoal stick. When the confirmation came through, he set the communicator down and looked at Sarah. "I'd like to stay," he said. If you'll have me." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Outside, the wind moved through the ashfield. The thorn blossoms trembled pink against the black rock. "Lyss has already decided," she said finally.